welcome to our latest ALTA Insights webinar. I'm Jeremy Yohe, ALTA's Vice President of Communications, and today we're going to discuss the importance of annual planning and highlight areas of focus that should be top of mind for title and escrow companies as we head into 2024. Almost said 2023. It's been a year. I do need to go through a few housekeeping items before we get started. There are some bullets that are on your screen. Today's webinar is being recorded. You'll get an email with a link to the recording tomorrow, and you can always access all of our webinar recordings at alta.org/webinars. That's alta.org/webinars. You can download a PDF of the presentation from the handout section in the Go to Webinar window. In the email you'll get tomorrow, there'll also be a link to download a copy of today's presentation. All attendee lines are muted. If at any time you have a question, submit them through the questions box. We'll hold a little bit of time for Q&A at the end of the presentation. Definitely need to thank Qualia for sponsoring today's webinar. And before I introduce today's speakers, we have a short message from Qualia.
Qualia's unified digital closing platform is used by thousands of title and escrow companies to provide simple, secure closing experiences, fully integrated workflows, accounting and reporting products, and a robust system of custom integrations power the connectivity your team and partners need and deliver the differentiated customer experience your clients expect. Qualia innovates alongside you. Together, we can proudly transform how homes are bought and sold.
All right. Thank you, Qualia. I've got to move a few things here on my screen. There we go. And show the slide deck again here. There we go. All right. With that, let me introduce today's speakers. First, we have Kun Wang. Kun is Chief Technical Officer for Guarantee Closing and Title Services. And also joining us, we have Katie Welsh. Katie is the Strategic Customer Success Manager for Qualia. Thank you both for joining us today and offering some insight into the planning process for everyone so we can be better prepared for the next year. Katie, I'll turn the presentation over to you.
Thank you, Jeremy. If you could get us to the agenda slide, that will be where I will start.
There we go.
Perfect. Well, excited to be here today. Annual planning is such an important concept for any business. So this is really important in terms of next year and your planning. So excited to go through these topics with you today. We are going to cover a couple of different agenda points here, starting with setting your strategic goals for the year. We're going to touch base on driving growth in a down market, how you can leverage technology for success. Wire fraud is something we'll touch on too, can't be ignored, such a serious topic. We'll then go into security and compliance considerations and then wrap up with a short Q&A at the end. What I want to start with today is really running through the benefits of what performing an exercise like this can bring your business and what you can expect to get out of annual planning. So there are many benefits to doing an exercise like this. Just a couple to note here. Financial accountability is something that you'll get out of annual planning. You'll be able to set more realistic financial goals for your business, which then will allow you to set more realistic budgets accordingly. Budgeting is really important in terms of profits and things like that. Performance measurement will also be a benefit. You will be able to set benchmarks to help track team performance throughout the year. Risk mitigation is another one. You'll be able to identify potential risks to help navigate any uncertainties that pop up. Having that playbook ready to go is crucial. When that does happen, those uncertainties do come up. Market competitiveness is another benefit. You'll be able to keep pace with industry standards and plan accordingly for that. Resource optimization is another, just kind of gauging your team, your talent, where they have time, allocating that appropriately. You'll be able to plan accordingly there. And then lastly, with that team alignment, the communication piece comes into play, and you're going to be able to plan for how to help everyone understand what your goals are, what that team mission is, how to, rally the troops, get everyone moving in the same direction. So with that, I just want to touch briefly on the down market. We all know that 2023 was a challenging year, so I don't want to linger too much on this point, but I do want to reiterate what we all know: the market was down and wire fraud was on the rise. So bad actors, they're just becoming increasingly more sophisticated in how they're able to commit this wire fraud. And so it makes mitigation on our end even more of a challenge, more of a challenge in the industry. So we will get into that in more detail later on in the call, but I just wanted to call those two items out. All that to say, with the down market, we have been experiencing that kind of prolonged trending down market, but in the grand scheme of things and from a historical perspective, the title premium volume is still very high over the last year. So I think that's really important for perspective and just having a positive mindset going into the next year as a leader. Our ultimate goal in today's webinar and having this conversation is to help you annual plan, getting all your ducks in a row and really getting ahead of these challenges that will certainly pop up in 2024. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kuhn, and she's going to go into how her team at Guarantee approaches the annual planning process.
Thank you, Katie. Turn me next slide, please. In the last few years, the market really experienced a lot of the extreme highs and the extreme lows. And today we are hearing all is how challenging the housing market is. But just like everyone, I was surprised to learn that actually the title premium is high in the historical perspective. And I think that really just serves a reminder for us that to take the long-term view in business planning. Here at Guarantee, we started process is really focusing on the fundamentals, which is the company vision and mission, centers on the unmatched customer services. Every year we start with SWOT analysis that examines the company's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats at the moment. But we do that every single year. And that allowed us to see the market trends, industry trends, and how we have responded over the years, learning a lot of lessons. And when it comes to the actual planning, we are always guided by the 10-year vision. That's refreshed every single year as well. We develop a plan with a 2-year horizon. And the advantage of that is that you can plan for long-term projects so that you're not only focused on what you have to do next quarter, but really long-term, how you accomplish your goals. Of course, the market is very cyclical and is really sensitive to a lot of economic signals. And that's what makes it important to plan for the unexpected and be agile. But overall, once you have a solid plan that anchored by the long-term growth goals, that really helps you to crystallize your priorities. And so you can make the adjustment in the mid-year a lot easier. Next slide. So going into 2024, we are hearing a lot of industry forecasts that's going to be a recovery year. However, we hear the numbers is very different. When it's going to happen, by how much? So here at Guarantee, we focus on is the fundamentals and the basics to grow our business, regardless how the market is going to move. Our area is in central Wisconsin. It's a very strong relationship-based market. So the number one priority is strengthen the existing partnership with the customers, with customer service. For us, that means continued investment in automation, in workflow efficiencies to reduce the turnaround time. And we want to make sure we answer majority calls with a live voice, which is probably very unique for today's business world. We want to do more customer education seminars and visit customers more often. We do a lot of things driving technology solutions, but it's very important to listen to the voice of the customers. How are they adapting to those technologies? Are those technologies creating barrier for them or actually removing barriers for them in doing business? Ultimately, we want to hear the customers' voices so that customer experience is better with a Guarantee always. The other aspect is continue to be part of the community. We're a family-owned business. We have always committed to the local communities. We're very proud to have local expertise and trust from our partners. We always sponsor and contribute to many community events, including those hosted by our customers. That's another way to reach out to your customers. Many of our employees are very active in their respective communities. Some are board members of a local nonprofit. We'll continue these efforts to build our brand and the market we serve. As our footprint increase, we are really gaining a lot of capability as well. So exploring new source of the revenue is important. And we have experience in some areas, some of the market in visible, for sale by owner, and commercial business. And in 2024, we want to expand that, bring those success, those experience into other markets that we currently do not have a dominance in that area. All these, what's really made possible is the employees. So it's very important to have a very positive and important office culture and company culture. So we are guaranteed to believe people are the foundation of our success. We have a WOW channel internally where we share the feedbacks from our customers, buyers, and sellers. And also it's an opportunity for us to give each other a shout out for a job well done. It is really amazing just for me, from distance, I'm not the front line, to see how the team collaborate, help each other to make every closing a happy experience for our customers. Really, is the unmatched service is not always showing the numbers immediately, but that is the foundation of your success. So once again, it's going back to basic. Tune out the noises of the market. You have to respond it when the volume goes up and down, but more importantly, it goes back to your fundamentals, what make your success. Turning back to you, Katie.
Thanks, Kun, for sharing those insights. That's all really interesting. And, from my point of view, almost every customer I talk with, this is top of mind, how to maintain those existing lines, how to find new sources of business. So I appreciate you sharing your approach to this. And I love too what you said about celebrating the victories and recognizing the great work of your employees. I think that's such a important thing. I wanted to call it out again because the down market will recover, and when it does, you want your best employees to be there with you and retain that great team you have. So I love that. All right, so now we want to transition to talking about technology and how technology will support your goals that we've been talking about, better customer experience, operational efficiency, maintaining your sources of business, et cetera. So Kun, I know you spoke earlier about innovation and the importance of being forward thinking in your approach. And I think this is really where that comes into play. In terms of operational efficiency, two of the big things that I speak to my customers about on a regular basis are workflows and reporting. Workflows are a central part of title and escrow operations, really the heart, in my opinion. As such, there's a lot of opportunity to use them to create efficiency and consistency in your process. I've seen customers just with editing their workflow and changing things up a bit, going through it with a fine-tooth comb, it really transforms the way you can and are able to do business and improve operational efficiency at that same time. In that same vein with workflows, reporting is going to go hand in hand there. It is key to understanding how your business is operating and then identifying where there's room for improvement. So again, I want to reiterate, these two things go hand in hand. They're really married together. Your workflows need to be set up, efficiently, correctly, in order to then generate the reporting and the data that you need to be able to drive that operational efficiency. At Qualia, we've coined this term of workflow debt, and I want to spend some time talking about it. The phrase came out of a concept in the technology industry known as tech debt. Essentially, workflow debt refers to the hidden operating costs that result when unique workflows are created to handle every possible nuance that can arise in a real estate transaction. And so there really can be hundreds of nuances at this point that could arise, which would having 100 workflows is really not manageable. So I want to talk about this a little bit. So for example, let's say you have two clients, client A, client B. They've each financed a purchase transaction. Client A lives in Maryland, B is in Virginia. So you build two distinct workflows to manage those transactions, even though most of the base tasks are most likely the same. It's just that location that's different. So there's two nuances. Then let's add another layer. You have client C. They're just like client B. They live in Virginia. This is also a purchase transaction, but they don't need a loan because they're going to pay in cash. So then you're layering another nuance. Do you need another workflow just for the cash only transactions? Probably not, because those base workflows are most often going to be the same and consistent across all of your different transactions. What could happen here, and where workflow debt comes into play, is you keep doing this for every transaction, and soon enough you have those hundreds of workflows that are independent of each other, and really it's very impossible to track and keep updated from an operational perspective and standpoint. So things start to break and you start to incur costs that really are hidden and hard to kind of uncover. So rather than creating a new workflow for every transaction type or client need or location specific nuance, we recommend building a small set of base workflows, and these will consist of tasks that are the same across a particular type of transaction, and then allow you to then layer on those additional elements that will serve the specific needs of the transaction without you having to create a brand new workflow every time. So it's so much more manageable, from an operational standpoint. Your operations leader will thank you, essentially. I know our clients have taken this approach to building workflows. The ones that have, they've found it dramatically decreases the number of workflows they need, number one, just to maintain their operations. They also see a lot of improvement in terms of consistency across the quality of their team's work, and even across different office locations, because everyone's using the same set of tasks to close. Office A is not doing something entirely different than Office B. That's really difficult to manage as a leader, having every office doing something different. So this base workflow ideology helps with management in those areas too. That kind of brings me next to reporting. Reporting really goes hand in hand with the workflows, like I said earlier. When we talk about reporting, there are two aspects that we generally focus on. The first one is a bit more obvious, which is that reports drive business intelligence and provide you the data that you ultimately need to make the necessary business decisions you need to make for your business. This side of reporting plays a huge part in annual planning. When you're trying to see where your business is coming from, the performance of various offices, how they're comparing to one another, resource allocation, budgeting, things like that. All those things you need to know to decide where to set goals and allocate the resources for the coming year. The second piece, the other side of reporting, it doesn't get talked about as much, but it's, when you're building, it's more so around building your reports. When you're building those reports, how are you building in those data points that you need to make those decisions we just mentioned? And then also, how is that going to help you manage your day-to-day operations? So on this end, your workflows and your reporting, again, go hand in hand. This piece of it, you can make sure that they include all the data points you need to understand how your business is operating across all departments and all levels. So a good example of this is a service level agreement and a turnaround time for any specific part of the closing process. Turn times is a good example because I think everyone, no matter your size, can benefit from managing and tracking turn times internally. And ultimately, those turn times can help you to have the best closing experience possible for your customers. So turn times have that direct impact on your team's ability to close on time, which that's what every customer is looking for. They want a fast, efficient closing. They want to walk out of there, things closed on time, the timing was communicated appropriately. Turn times help make that possible. If your team isn't completing certain tasks in a given period of time, or your vendors aren't fulfilling orders when they said they would, that's going to negatively impact your closing, and it's going to affect your ability to bring in that repeat business. So it's really crucial in creating workflows with tasks that allow you to specifically track turn times and certain actions. You're going to have visibility into your operations, and it'll allow you to maintain expectations for performance, but also call out areas that need improvement. So another example to think about, if you're creating certain tasks within your workflow that are completed, like so a title search, let's say, if that's requested and when the title search is returned from the vendor, if there's particular lags in that turnaround time in Office A compared to Office B, you're going to be able to put your detective hat on and delve into that a bit deeper. Is it the timing of the vendor returning the search? Is it a specific team member and their timeliness in completing tasks? There are going to be a few different things that you can investigate there and generally typically improve based on what you find out. So the only way to have insight into those specific data points is building out the right reporting from your workflows. So that second piece isn't talked about as much, but generally very crucial there.
Thanks, Katie. I just want to add a point is that I really love the term of a workflow debt. I know it's coming from the engineering development. What's interesting about the workflow debt is it compounds, as you said, as you layer more and more work to it, it compounds over time. And then it becomes very difficult to understand the full impact, and to try to unwind it's a very costly process as well. It's also a great point you made about how workflow and report help each other to drive business insight. I actually have a story that's recently we were running a report, and when we found out it was that each office handled the orders putting on hold differently. And what really that resulted is we were doing unnecessary chasing around for orders that's already put on hold for whatever reason. So now we have the same process across all the offices.
I love that.
Yeah. Another aspect we're doing with the reporting is building data extraction using reports and marrying that with the external data sources to identify market opportunities. And we're really excited to chase some of those opportunities in 2024.
That's great to hear. Just one last thing on the workflows. I know we covered a lot of ground here. Before we move on, I just wanted to point out Qualia does have a free resource that we released earlier this year around the workflow framework. Our team has done a great job building out a series of e-guides that help you to identify workflow debt in your operations and then implement streamlined base workflows from there. Again, to help you better manage all of the transaction complexity that comes up in your business. And this is great too, because it's really agnostic of any specific title software. You could, depend, whatever software you're on, I think you could get a great benefit out of these guides. And a quick note about how we put these together, our professional services team created these. Collectively, they have decades of experience in the industry, and they also included a change management piece about your workflows and kind of upending your processes. You could do all the work in the world, and if your team isn't going to use it or adopt it, it's useless. So that change management piece is really key and something we included in our guides here.
All right, I think it's my turn to moving on to go back to the concept of innovation. At Guarantee, we're always looking for technology to drive efficiency and better services. One of the things we believe is that integration will help you of all different systems. It will help you to leverage and maximize your investments that you already made into the technology. I have a couple of examples. The first one is the Encompass and Qualia integration. I know other vendor solutions have similar integration. Just making sure you look into that. In our case, we're leveraging that integration with lender partners. With just a few clicks, an order from Encompass is in Qualia. And we can continue to collaborate with the lenders using the integration to exchange documents. That really removed a lot of friction in the process and also reduced the risk of any data entry errors. So I think we are really benefiting that and seeing the improvement of the customer service. The other move we made is to leverage the Qualia's e-signature in the system. The benefits of that is all our customers now, when they interact with us, they are now dealing with multiple systems should there need a need for e-signature. And internal, our staff does not really have to move one document to another system to collect signature and then moving back for other service. All the document, once you sign, is along with your commitment, your policy, all within the system for our customer to consume. So we're in 2024, one of our initiatives is to build on top of that experience to better our support for lenders' hybrid closings. We believe that will have improved customer experiences and saving the cost for both the lenders and Guarantee while we save a few trees.
Mm-hmm.
The other technology I really want to talk about is RON, Remote Online Notary. This really took off during the COVID years because when in-person closing becoming more difficult. But in the last few years, it didn't seem to being adopted at the rate that everybody expected. RON provides a fully digital experience end-to-end. It provides proper identification verification, and you have your document all signed, notarized in one session. So why not like it?
Mm-hmm.
in the reality is that Ron is still very hard and face a lot of challenges in the market. The very first one probably is from the lender. There's a lot of trepidation in terms of legality as well as the complexity involved in the Ron session. I think we probably have overcome that, but just implementation on the lender side is still very slow. What we have heard in the market is that it's not personable. And I understand because digital, you can't shake hands, which is kind of important in this relationship-based business. The technology is challenging. Sometimes it does not work, and not everybody find it easy. So that's probably not a surprise that the adoption rate has slowed down. But from our perspective as innovator with technology, I guarantee we believe that over time, because of the remote culture and the world is increasingly virtual, remote closing will become the norm instead of the exception. Obviously, that takes time. But the important thing is that you want to start, at least for us, is building that and design that digital experience that can rival your in-person experience. Because your customers want, once that happens, you want digital experience just as good as your in-person experience. And that takes time. You need to build that experience early on. And think about the change of online shopping versus in-store shopping. And that is, I think what we're facing today with the Ron versus the in-person closing experiences. So in 2024, we do have plans to expand Ron. We want to make that an option and make that a capability that our customer can count us on. We have had some access this year with our experiment. We have some very happy customers who has done Ron, either because they're in active deployment or they had a sickness or they just want the convenience. But I'm not going to just paint a rosy picture, everything's fine. No, Ron does fail from time to time. That could happen. And it's very important to set the expectation with your customers, especially the buyer and sellers involved in the transaction. So over communication and setting the expectation, prepare your customers, even if they're technical more savvy. Keep in mind is that Ron is not as simple as you join a webinar, a few clicks. There are a lot of things involved. So we developed a FAQ pages on our website to educate the general public. We are going to conduct marketing campaigns to educate our customers, especially realtors. And for every single appointment, before the appointment, we send out documentation, technical details, checklist, instructions, and including tests that to making sure that the customers are prepared when they come into the Ron session. Overall, we just want to make sure that you have to be ready when your customer is asking for it, and that's going to come.
I love that approach. I love that approach y'all are taking with getting more people more comfortable with Ron. I think, yeah, just communicating and educating can make it feel way more accessible and can go a long way. So I love those tips. Yep. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to pivot our attention to a new topic. I know it's been top of mind for everyone, and that's wire fraud. So specifically, what can we do as an industry to combat it? I just want to touch base on a couple of these statistics before we get into it in more detail here. Just some of these statistics are pretty staggering, so it really tells the story of what the industry is going through and what we do need to combat and protect ourselves against. Nearly $400 million were reported in adjusted losses in 2022. Nearly 50% of real estate transactions in Q4 of 2022 had issues that led to fraud at closing. And then in an Alta survey, reported cyber criminals attempted to trick employees to wire their funds to a fraudulent account 1/3 of the time. So really staggering numbers. It's really something you cannot avoid at this point, so you have to be thinking about mitigation. That's what I noted earlier too. The people conducting these fraud acts are becoming increasingly more sophisticated in how they're doing so. The technology available is helping to perpetuate that. And then as an industry, we need to be focusing our efforts on the mitigation techniques and trying to reduce the instances of that wire fraud as much as possible, knowing that with the advanced technology, it's a bit more difficult to spot sometimes when wire fraud is at play. So something that we've been talking to our customers a lot about recently is there's no such thing as wire fraud prevention. It is impossible to fully prevent wire fraud from happening. Instead, we need to focus our time and energy on our resources to reduce the impact of wire fraud as much as possible. At Qualia, we like to talk about wire fraud mitigation as a three-pronged approach consisting of people, process, and technology. Just one of these things isn't enough on its own. You really need to layer your protection to help combat wire fraud. So Koen, I'll have you touch on people and process.
Great. You're absolutely right, Katie. You really have to have all three elements in place to help you protect your business as well as your clients against the bad actors. When it comes to people, there are two groups you need to be considering. One is your internal employees, which probably is on top of your mind, but the other group is your client. In this case, particularly your buyers. We all live and breathe the closings every day, but for most of people, they only go through a closing process a few times in life. And buying a home is a very overwhelming experience. You need to worry about it alone. You need to worry about moving and understanding why I'm signing all these papers. So many do not do fund wiring very often. So it's very important to educate the buyers on the fraud risk and understanding what the kind of scams are happening. Establish a protocol, communication protocol, on how wire instruction will be sent to the buyers. This way, the buyers understand what is the normal process, so that help them to detect any scams should something happen out of the ordinary. It's also a very good practice to advise them to call the office before sending the funds. This might sound, no-brainer to someone, and also sounds excessive to someone. It's always a good practice so that everybody understands what the risk and how you can mitigate that risk. When it comes to internal staffs, you've got to keep security up top of your mind. That is education, education, education. You cannot talk too much about security. So here at Guarantee, we have comprehensive annual security training. And every quarter we have a refresher training, just 10-15 minutes, a single topic on that. Not only the people will understand the risk involved, but also just a reminder for what is happening. We also do phishing simulation periodically and unexpectedly, and hoping that people will detect and understand how the bad actors trying to approach that. Security is a standard topic in monthly company all hands meeting. So keeping that fresh on everybody's mind is very important. Now going into practices. To start, make sure employees are following all the best practices by Alta. And so here on the first screen, you can see some of the best practices recommended by Alta. Strong password with a multi-factor authentication. Cannot say enough. Certainly move on to any modern authentication, passwordless, if you can, that's an option. Here at Guarantee, we also implement single sign-on together with geofencing to any system that we could, so that you have a better control of system access. Enforce through your system, strong password is important, and keep your system up to date with the patches and updates. Another thing is email protection and endpoint device protection. You may have to implement that, making sure you periodically review and update the protection policies. Review system logins. Again, these are all good practices and also best practice recommendation by Alta. The other aspect of your process, next slide, thank you, is to build in tasks in your workflow as another security layer. So for example, reminding people to call, verify payments if anything is suspicious, flag discrepancies before dispensing funds, using positive and reverse positive pay, another Alta recommendation. Do your daily reconciliation. I know sometimes it's busy, but do that, help you detect errors early. Talk to your bank and your cybersecurity insurance carriers. They will keep you afresh in terms of what's the trend, what the techniques are being used, and how you could respond and help your customers. Building your response plans is important. Put it in writing, but more important is actually do a tabletop exercise as well. And that will not only help you to identify potential gaps in your plan, but also a tool to train, educate your staff and how to respond should something is happening, to keep step in before it creates damage.
Yeah, thank you. I like that you mentioned the part with your bank and calling them ahead of time. I know every bank has a slightly different process for how they manage fraud complaints. So knowing who to contact and how to reach them if something does happen and having that information ahead of time just makes me feel like you could tackle the incident much quicker. So I love that. So with this three-pronged approach, the last layer we want to touch on is the technology piece. We said before that technology is available to the people committing fraud. That technology available is getting better and better. So title and escrow companies need to make sure they're also using the best technology available to help mitigate and detect the fraud. And just some key points we want to touch on here. Use a secure portal for communication and document exchange. I think at this point that's a non-negotiable. With the next piece, it's important to evaluate and adopt a wire fraud detection solution. And features within a solution like this might look like EMD deposit collection, wire fraud detection, verification of seller IDs, and then a wire integration with your bank. I want to note too that the use of a wire verification process that was added to Alta's best practices in May of this year. So definitely wanted to make note of that. And lastly, Qualia introduced Shield earlier this year. It's the first full integrated funding disbursement and fraud detection product in the space. And I wanted to highlight that Shield was specifically built with all of these best practices in mind. So we're really excited about the impact that it can make overall in terms of mitigating wire fraud in the industry. So if you don't have a solution like this yet, I definitely encourage you to learn more about Shield. All right, so we're getting towards the end of our time together today, but before we wrap up, we have one more agenda item to touch on, and that's the key components of the update to the Alta best practices that went into effect earlier this year, and that's the Written Information Security Plan, or for the acronym loving, better known as WISP. And that is, so Alta Best Practices Pillar 3 requires that title and escrow companies adopt and maintain a WISP to help protect the non-public information shared as part of the closing process. You might also see non-public information noted as NPI, another acronym there. A couple of key notes about a WISP that you need to take into consideration. It outlines a company's strategies for protecting sensitive information. It's made up of several policies and procedures, which together define and document what it means for you to do business securely. And for example, it should include policies that govern things like how computing resources are utilized, how access to customer data is managed. So a comprehensive WISP is really necessary to doing business for several reasons. One, it's primarily designed to protect that non-public information, such as customer data, financial information, and employee records. And then it also assists with overall risk assessment, business continuity in the event of a disaster, and then employee awareness and training, which is very important, and then building that customer trust. They want to be able to know that they're closing with you and their data is secure. It's such a key part of, this day we live in, and going into 2024, digital is just going to be more and more prevalent.
Yes, Katie, and I think that it's very important to know that you want to have a dedicated team to work on this rather than just something off your desk, because really our world is changing around really fast, and it's important to keep up to date. Here at Guarantee, we have our CFO leading the compliance team that creates and maintains these policies and perform annual reviews and to making sure it's updated as your workflow changes, maybe perhaps the partner changes or your technology changes, making sure those things are moving along and having the procedures updated for your employees.
That's an important call out. And in that same vein, Qualia has their own information security team here. And to help title and escrow companies create a comprehensive WISP, that team created a free e-guide that provides some suggestions on what you can include in this document, just based on, current industry best practices and their expert strategy guidance. So if you don't have one yet, that's definitely a resource that you can check out that will help guide you on how to put that together. You can go to qualia.com under resources and find that guide. All right, I think we are now to our Q&A portion, so I'll hand it back over to Jeremy.
All right, Katie and Koen, thank you for the information and insight on building a plan. We do have some time for Q&A, so if you have any questions, pop them in the questions box and we'll hopefully get them answered. If you don't have any questions right now, think of it later. Shoot an email to partners@qualia.com and they can help you out. You can also email me, jyowie@alta.org. Koen, a question I was thinking about as you were talking, when in the year do you start the process to build a plan? I'm sure you started several months ago. You didn't turn, the page January 1st, like, okay, there we go, we're ready to rock and roll. There became a point in time where you were thinking about it. So I'm guessing it's part of an iterative process, and you're just kind of working throughout, and then you get to a point, and then you're ready to apply it for the next business calendar.
Yes, absolutely. You're absolutely right. In terms of ritual, I believe we do, just like every company has a calendar when we start planning. But when you are having a long-term plan, every time when you review your business, looking at your financials and looking at any changes in the market, that's an opportunity to really looking at your plan for this year any adjustments made or anything that you plan to change for the following years. Yes, absolutely. It's really an iterative process. It's not just one time, fine, done, and put on the shelf.
And then maybe just talk a little bit more about the process. Is it top down? I mean, is it the company owner or an office manager kind of like, okay, this is our plan, or is it more of a all-inclusive staff discussion?
I think it's more of all inclusive. We start kicking off the process with the management team, senior management team, as well as managers of in the field, in the offices. We're looking at our SWOT analysis as very broad group to making sure we are reflecting the market, the first people on the front line, as well as people who are maybe more in tune to in the industry. And that's a collaborative process. Absolutely going to that. Once we have all that information, we do have a process of aggregating, filtering through, and building up a thematic goal for every year. So that is kind of the post for that year, and then we'll have the actual implementation plan, a strategy that that's being built by every functional group.
Mm-hmm. And then maybe a simple question: what kind of document is this? Is this a Word document with different headers and the bullet points, or is this an elaborate program that you use?
No, we're very much every team could have a different style. Sometimes a spreadsheet, sometimes a PowerPoint. The most important is not the format, but it's the content and understanding how to execute going forward.
All right, Katie, this might be a question for you. We're talking, to mention, content and security is definitely a big issue. Joe asked a question, or what are some of the ways Qualia protects NPI on public data?
That's a great question. We are SOC 2 compliant and follow all of Alta's best practices in terms of security and compliance. So we feel very confident in that area in terms of providing that security to our customers. And Joe, if you did want to kind of get a list of all of those different areas that we, take care of security and everything we have covered there, we can provide you with documentation and provide you with a list of all those details if you reach out to our support team.
Okay. All right. Just a reminder, if you have any questions, pop them in the chat box and we'll pitch them over. We don't have any others, Katie and Koen. Joe said thanks.
We've covered everything.
Everyone's ready for 2024. We're ready to just rip off December and move on in.
Yeah.
Just a reminder, if you missed parts of today's webinar or you think others in your office would benefit from listening, a recording of the presentation will be available at alta.org/webinars. You'll also get an email with a link to the recording tomorrow. Katie, did you have anything else you'd like to share?
One last thing before we go, while I have y'all here, I just want to take the opportunity to remind everyone about Qualia's 2024 event, the Future of Real Estate Summit. It's back next year. It'll be an interactive in-person event at the beautiful Fairmont Hotel in Austin, Texas from April 8th to 10th. I think Koen is sending a couple of her team members. I've personally stayed at the Fairmont on my Mother's Day weekend away, and it was amazing, so highly recommend. If you want to learn more, you can go to our website, and we have a lot of great information there about FORCE. But that was it on my end.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. And
thank you.
Koen Angel says thank you. She's happy to know that they're already implementing some of the things that you discussed, and so thank you and sharing how your company approaches this.
Great, thank you. Anyone have questions, please send, and I'd love to hear what you're doing at your company and learn from each other.
Okay, all right, well, thank you. I need to thank Qualia once again for sponsoring today's webinar. And that will bring us to the conclusion of today's presentation. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.